But I'm really concerned about Project Bluebeam that's been partially declassified, and Iron Mountain and other plans to unify the planet under world government with a fake UFO landing. And with the CG and with the technology we know that they've suppressed, they could easily do that with animatronics. We see the Pope getting everybody ready, saying, God has other flocks, aliens are probably real. We see the Vatican getting folks ready. I mean, I really see this preparation in movies and culture pushing this. What's your take on that?
Oh, you are so right on. They want to fake eventually. It's like the day the earth stood still. They're going to want us to flock to government begging for help. Oh, my God, the extraterrestrials are here. They're going to eat us. They're going to take us. They're going to capture us. Please, governments, please do what you can. And under this guise, this is incredible, of using holograms and everything else, they're going to, they think we're going to flock to them for help like sheeple going underneath a tree during a storm. And I don't think it's going to work. I think people are so tuned into this already through shows like yours and mine that they're going to look at this and go, they faked it. And but they're going to make it as realistic as possible.
Sure.
They might even have some fake alien, standing next to President Obama saying, we are taking over your planet now. And it's going to be unbelievable.
It'll be like The Simpsons. It's a two-headed monster, but as long as you vote for one of the heads, everything's okay. There's the headline. Vatican astronomer says alien life will be discovered, but will not prove or disprove God. Speaking of the big questions, I knew Raymond Teague, who died last year, who was on the front line of the NASA Apollo missions. You can watch the film footage. He's right up there in mission control, controlling the cameras on the spacecraft, on the lander, and so much more. He basically ran Skylab. It was all so classified that he came over my house a lot. And he'd say, I'm going to tell you. And then he couldn't say it. But he said, listen, we went to the moon, but we have some advanced stuff I didn't want the Russians to know we had. You saw most of the mission, but basically it was linking up with other stuff. And then he just said, I'll get killed if I tell you. And I mean, he really was on the front line of NASA. And he would get really upset when he even talked about it with me. I met with him at a hotel, actually the former SAC base at the Hilton, for a hamburger whenever he was picking up some family that was in town. He said, can you meet me there? And he was going to tell me stuff right before he died because he'd had another heart attack. He was going in for surgery. His heart blew up like 2 weeks later.
Oh.
And he's just, you know what, I'm not going to tell you. It's too dangerous. He said, I care about you, Alex. They'll kill you. So to the government, he never told me what it was. He just said, look, we went to the moon. Well, separately, they say this, the SR-71 Blackbird is the fastest plane in the world. It was in service in 55. Who believes that? We know they're suppressing technologies. We know that they've gotten really arrogant about these technologies. But how advanced is the secret space program? And from all your research, who do you think's really running things in this global government? And are they so arrogant now with the Russians and others because they've got such super weapons? Or is it just old-fashioned arrogance?
Well, I think it's arrogance, and it's power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I think we've been to the moon. There's no question we've been to the moon. I've interviewed too many astronauts. These people aren't lying to me, Alex. But the question is have we been back to the moon since? And were we there back a long time ago? I think that's possible on both fronts. I think high technology existed on Earth millions of years ago.
Atlantis,
you name it. I think we went to the moon millions of years ago, and that we have structures on the moon.
Plato wrote about Atlantis like it was real and flying machines and everything.
Oh, that's absolutely. Yeah, in India, they had vimanas, which were flying machines. I mean, they clearly wrote about it. Pictures in Abydos in Egypt, you will see what looks like a helicopter and a submarine and a flying apparatus. I mean, it happened. We had, whether it was extraterrestrial technology or ours, we had the ability to do these things. Something happened on the planet where everybody got obliterated, and we started all over again. And that's a lesson for all of us, because good old planet Earth regenerates itself And, we could all get wiped out. Every building you see today would crumble to dust. And in 100 million years, it could start all over again.
Well, I agree with you, and I don't like to get into speculation because then the media runs off with that and demonizes me. I can't get folks to admit FEMA camps when they're called Emergency Centers Establishment Act, Civilian Inmate Labor Camp Program. Geoengineering's admitted, but they go, oh, that doesn't exist. So I can't get folks to admit what exists. And in the area of research, there are some kooks out there, some charlatans, but also a lot of real folks. I was in L.A. even after he'd been on the show, and I talked to Buzz Aldrin at length. And then after this happened, he didn't say I couldn't talk about it. But after I talked about it, I guess he got in some trouble and won't come back on. But Buzz Aldrin came on this show and never told anybody else this. It's online. And said, oh, yeah, the same aliens that built Egypt, they're the ones that have got an obelisk, that's what we based the movie on, 2001. It's out on the moon, the small moon of Mars. Mars has one little moon. And, and by the way, and then next I talked to him a few months later, I'm out in L.A., and he goes, this is over the phone, on speakerphone. He goes, Alex, in about 6 months, they're going to crash a probe in looking for water on the moon. The truth is, we already found it. We're just going to let them think they found it, but we're sending them there with the probe. We got a secret deal with the Indians, and we want them to have this find. But there's a whole ocean of water, basically all under the moon, and that's all I can tell you. And I mean, I'm talking to Buzz Aldrin, and then 6 months later, it happens, and they find the water, and it's a whole ocean, which shows we were just told something they knew. We now know they've released the text out of Portugal that they knew what the Americas were. The Vikings had been here. The Chinese were doing trade with the Aztecs and people. I mean, the truth is, the elite, the Illuminati, already know all this history. They've kept it from us. I mean, Buzz Aldrin told me publicly that aliens built the pyramids on this show. Have you ever heard that clip?
Did. And they did, absolutely. It was incredible. There's nothing that we have on this planet that could have built the pyramids in those days. We didn't have 100,000 Egyptians pulling ropes. It just didn't happen that way. There was some other kind of incredible technology, and I believe it was extraterrestrial. I had interviewed Zahi Hawass, who was the antiquities director. Not anymore. He got tossed out after Mubarak fell apart. But, you bring up the thought of ETs to him, he's livid. He'll chase you up and down with a baseball bat. He believes so much that Egyptians did this, and there's no way. There's just no way they could have done that. So many mysteries on this planet, Alex, that just boggle the mind, including, of course, the conspiracies that you and I deal with on a nightly basis as well.
Sure. Well, they claim the step pyramids were practiced, then they built the big ones, but now scientists, as you know, have tested them. No, the little ones are humans trying to make them, trying to copy the real ones.
Yes.
It is just so bizarre. And again, folks, I don't even get into all this because people can't even deal with basic reality like Bilderberg Group existing. Hey, George, what do you make of us, 13 years ago or whatever, talking about Bilderberg and nobody knowing about it, and then now it's admitted it exists?
You have pinpointed exactly what's going on this planet. We are years, and have been years, ahead of ourselves, that people are now beginning to get caught up. And I'm amazed. I have Daniel Estalon, who was very complimentary about you, by the way, on my show last week. And we were talking about the Bilderberg's conference in Austria and how that they're so public now. On one hand, they've got their website up. They put down who some of the members are, yet some of the other people, it's clouded in secrecy. They try to jam reporters. They don't want people in. You can't really report on what they're talking about because they want it to be a free airing conference within. But we were years ahead of ourselves. And you, of course, you were the pioneer about this.
Well, you get a lot of credit, but separate from credit, we were right is what matters. We're not making this stuff up is the point. And it comes down to that we're being lied to. We don't claim to have all the answers. We're simply looking for the truth and try to be honest. And that's the difference. George Noory, coasttocoastam.com. I'll be speaking with him coming up in a few months in Canada. Look forward to seeing you all up there. I'm going to leave this totally wild card. I've got a bunch of topics I want to raise, but when we come back, I'm going to just let George bring up what else he thinks is important. It'll be a surprise for all of us. Straight ahead, the final segment of the transmission with George Noory. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com. Spread the word.